and welcome to Legally Speaking with me, Tarun Nangia. We have achieved a landmark 5 years since the launch of the goods and services tax. Collections have crossed 1,40,000 crores. A lot of problems which we faced earlier when the GST was launched. With time, many have been ironed out. But business is something which is an ongoing process, and expectations never end. So there are a bunch of expectations that the eminent community of chartered accountants and lawyers have, which will make GST easier and more compliant friendly for the MSMEs. And that is what is the agenda that we'll take up. First, to congratulate on the successful 5 years completion of GST, and also the expectation list from the companies. And I have a very excellent panel for this today on the show. May I welcome Gopal Krishna Agarwal. He's a well-known person, Chief Economic Spokesperson of the Bharatiya Janata Party, and a regular face on our show. Good to see you, Mr. Agarwal. And hope you had a good time at the Hyderabad BJP National Executive. And of course, there would have been some discussion on GST also, among other things. I would also like to welcome Mr. S. Ravi from Ravi Rajan and Company, one of India's well-known chartered accountants, heading a large firm of his own based out of Delhi. I have with me Rakesh Nangia, non-executive chairman of Nangia Anderson. He joins us from Bombay, but I think that's one of his many offices in the country. But good to see you today. And Advocate Gagan Kumar joins us from Delhi, who does a lot of these tax-related issues and regularly comes up with interesting insights in the tax ecosystem. Good to see you, Mr. Gagan Kumar. And at the outset, may I request Shri Gopal Krishna Agarwal in about 2 minutes to lay the ground, and then we move ahead. Over to you, Mr. Agarwal. You're not audible. You'll have to unmute, please.
Thank you, Tarunji. This program is always a pleasure to be in, because it gives an in-depth analysis of the subject, and this is the right time. The government is also undertaking a review on what we have. We had objectives in mind when the GST was implemented, and how much we have achieved the target. One heartening note on which I would like to start is that the GST collection has been steadily increasing, and now it is almost 1,68,000 crores, which is a very handsome figure. And when we had started, that we had expected that if we cross 1 lakh crore a month, it will be a good target to be achieved, but it has crossed. That's very good. The number of taxpayers registered under GST is also is improving a lot now. E-way bill and other initiatives have taken place. One thing I would like to mention here is that there was an RBI report last month where it said that when in 2015 GST was envisioned, the committee under Mr. Subramaniam had said that the net revenue neutral rate under the GST should be around 15 to 15.5%. But last month RBI report said the average GST rate has come down to 11.6%. So the average GST rate, which has come down from earlier indirect tax of around 25 to 30%, under the GST, there are 4 slabs and maximum items are covered under 5, 12 and 18%. The average rate has come down to 11.6%. That shows that in spite of reduction in tax to such a large extent, which is beneficial to the poor sections and the lower strata of the population, still the revenue collection is steadily increasing. That shows the compliance has increased. People are happy with the GST regime, and government at the state and the center are getting handsome revenues, and there is space now to increase revenue collection through increased rate also, because today only we have seen a report where the Secretary, Ministry of Finance has said that we can now see some of the items where GST can be increased, because we have a space where average revenue can be improved. So indirect tax is increasing, collection under indirect tax is increasing, government is compensating the state as was promised for the 5 years during the GST Council's meeting at the time of implementation. And now GST Council is also rationalizing on the inverted duty structures, where some of the GST rates from the final products were low and that were not sufficient to absorb the intermediary taxes which were collected on the GST. That also issue is being taken care of. So many of the issues, even the glitches on the technological front has also been removed. One thing I would like to say in the course of our discussion is about what you have targeted, that some of the problems that the MSME sectors are facing under the GST that we can discuss on the.
Sure. Thanks for your introductory comment. We'll come to the expectations later, and we move on to S. Ravi from Ravi Rajan and Company for his introductory comment.
So when GST was introduced 5 years ago, there were a lot of misgivings. There were a lot of how the center state, how the whole equation will work, how will be the distribution that will work. So, and then compounded with that was the platform issue, the technology issue, then the interpretation and awareness issue, both from the SSE and the SSE person. There were a lot of sort of confusion in that. Then there were issues of input credit, whether it is to be set up against liabilities. Then there were a lot of clarifications in that. There were issues on various rates that were there. So I think over this last 5 years with 47 odd meetings of the GST Council, and every meeting was progressive to address some of the issues. And this being such a major reform and across India and superseding many of the other small taxes, indirect taxes, was itself a major reform. And to streamline that, I think the last 2 years we have seen, despite a strong COVID outburst, we have seen a very strong recovery in terms of good collection by in form of GST. I look at it that it has been a very progressive journey. Not that it was full of challenges of acceptability, and now it has been accepted. And I think more important is how do we address to the lower category of people, that is MSME, SMEs, who have to bring in more awareness and to make the cost of compliance lesser. Awesome. And also to see how the compensation cess is taken care in the future. These are few of the things which will come in the future, but it has been a good journey and the rationalization is taking place at a very fast pace.
Thank you for that introductory comment. I'll go to Mr. Rakesh Nangia, Non-Executive Chairman, Nangia Anderson. Your introductory comment today.
Thank you, Tarun. I must say the GST introduction of GST is a most classical case of cooperative federalism. Never since independence you've seen how the entire state, the entire country agreed on a one single tax. And it came with the ethos of one tax, one market, one country. I think I can even say that in terms of ease of doing business, it was the single largest booster to the way you do business, It became a complete redeemed the entire format of how you used to pay and comply to the indirect taxes were there. As you all know that there were 16 taxes which got subsumed in GST. Just imagine, Tarun, just rewind yourself. There used to be excise person sitting in your factory to clear the goods manually. You used to visit the tax offices, GST office, VAT offices, taking Form 31, Form C, waiting there for days. See the resumption it has brought it. And thanks to the entire thing, the willingness and the government determination to move towards the technology was concerned. And this could not have come had this not been technology. It would have never been so seamless. And if I see the certainty is brought to the whole tax regime, the uniformity it has brought to the whole economy, the way it has accelerated the formalization of the economy is concerned. Just imagine, we don't know where the offices are there today. We don't visit anybody with a GST office. Hardly you visit GST office. So if I say that, I can say that single most important redemption in ease of doing business, cooperative federalism, which brought was the introduction of GST. And I need to add a couple of things that my learned speaker have just said. The revenue of the GST more or less increased to 80-90% from the day of 2017 till today. 80 to 90% in terms of actual figures is concerned. The number of SSC, number of registrations also went up. Right, the new registration which came, and this could only happen because of technology, because of better implementation, and because it gave more certainty and formalization of the economy and the government determination also.
Formalization of economies. I mean, the important point there, a lot of industries were bought into the formalized system. I get that point. I'll go to Advocate Gagan Kumar for his opening comment. Of course, people would go to you when they have a problem with the system, but nevertheless.
Thanks, Tarun, for making me part of this illustrious panel. And this is a very timely issue which you have taken up. I'll just start with the 3 comments. We all celebrate the infrastructure of Facebook and Twitter, but the GSTN network is one of the IT infrastructure, maybe unique in the global environment, which need to be applauded. No doubt, it went through a very turbulent time, and over a period of time, it has more or less stabilized. So the 2 IT infrastructures, the GSTN and the Indian Railway and the MCA, these 3 critical and crucial government IT infrastructure, without any hacking, no hacking, despite the various cyber attacks which we witness every day from hostile countries. So that's one. Secondly, the formation of GST Council has proved that how, if state governments along with the central government join hands and work in a cohesive manner, what cannot be achieved. So we are today inching towards achieving almost 50% of our budget just from GST collection. That is remarkable. Thirdly, you would be remembering this movie called Tara Rampam from Saif Ali Khan and Rani Mukherjee, where they land up into a debt trouble and go through a turbulent time. So this is a reminder to the lesson that borrowings invariably eat into your future resources. Therefore, we have no choice but to harness the tax collection system in a manner that the revenue from taxes go up steadily. And we are witnessing it, that the way we are emerging out of the COVID, the tax collection is going up and up, coupled with the fact that we are still not fully at the normal level, but the initiatives like Atmanirbhar Bharat and UPI, I would, in my discussion, I often say that in India, probably why crypto could not succeed, because UPI took care of that aspect, that peer-to-peer fund transferring at zero cost. So this formalization of economy because of UPI and other initiatives of the government, coupled with the enlargement of coverage of GST into the rural belt, is 3 things which need to be applauded, which looked like imagination just 6 years back, and today it looks like a reality.
Thanks for that introductory comment. Now we'll go to the suggestions part of our show, very important part, where we will ask about 2 to 3 expectations, new introductions, amendments to the GST law, which will make it friendly for most of the people to abide by the tax paying mechanism. First, I'll go to Mr. Gopal Krishna Agarwalji for his comment on this. Your expectations, and I know you engage a lot with the government. You have been time and again taking up issues. Many of them have bore fruit. So we want to hear what you want to say on this. You're not audible. Yeah, you'll have to unmute.
One thing what I would like to underline is that government is committed to streamline the inverted duty structure. Anything which is brought about to the knowledge of the GST Council through the government, where there is any anomaly between the final product tax structure and the intermediaries. Government is committed that they are rationalizing, they are in the process, and any more issues which are brought to us, we will definitely do it. So that is one thing. Second thing is that the collection has stabilized and the average rate has come down to 11.6%. So there is no now any further challenge that whether GST will be, whether tax collection, indirect tax collection will be a challenge for the government. It is stabilized. The third thing is that what I would like to say is that there is a large part of data collation. Automatically, the data from the GST in returns, etc., is being incorporated into the tax returns. The GST data is being shared for stabilizing the financial history or credit history. Or banks are also, if the business agrees, that data can be shared with the banks, and that will give a further strength to their financing from the banks. So small businesses are also benefiting from that. The large data, the financial transaction history, which was earlier not being captured by the system and which was not giving benefit to them as a financial history. Now they have a mechanism through which their financial well-being, financial strength, their financial transactions, their compliances now have a audit trail which can be used to strengthen their business environment, ecosystem. So this is very important. I think the small businesses more and more should use this data, which is now large data, which is being generated and which establishes an audit trail and which will benefit them in the long run. So I think these are very important things. Third thing I would like to mention for the small businesses and even the large business community also, that some of the reforms which were envisioned in the GST regime, like e-way bill or reverse charge structure, etc., or reducing the cycle of returns, assessment and refund. The industry, etc., in the initial phases when there was some technological glitch, were trying to modify these important initiatives. That they asked for removal of the reverse charge mechanism. They wanted relaxation into the e-way bill. They had asked the government that this timeline for filing returns, assessment, etc., should be increased. But these three demands, though the government has accepted, ultimately these are not to the benefit of the businesses. Because if you increase the size of time allowed for filing of returns, ultimately what happens? It will increase the working capital requirement of the businesses. Reverse charge mechanism was for the benefit of the small businesses so that they can, without any compliances, they could get into the business with the large companies who itself will deduct their GST and deposit themselves. And e-way bill was to track the movement of the goods, one nation, one country, and even octroi, etc. Those movements, etc., was streamlined. So these initiatives, though industry initially had asked relaxation on these three counts, and the government has accepted, I urge the industry now to rethink on these and come out with the government to help into further implementation of these
Thank you. Thank you for these suggestions. I'll go to S. Ravi from Ravi Rajan and Company for his suggestions how to improve GST. Yes.
Sorry. First of all, on the platform side, what happens is once a person makes a wrong entry, there needs to be a corrective step which takes time. So for that, there should be an empowerment which will happen slowly at the assessing person's level through, of course, the online system where they can produce documents to make the correction. That is one thing which will go a long way in sort of practically helping the cause, because the rectification itself is a process by itself. The second is to have a look at the compensation cess, because that is one thing that, of course, the last council, it was sort of addressed, but I think it has to be done with. So because compensation cess is one thing that will go away, because there are no freebies as far as this is concerned. The third thing that I would strongly feel is for the smaller SME and MSME segment, the data sharing between a platform to be created where data sharing can happen, an open source data platform between the banks and the SMEs and the MSMEs and the GST collection, so that what happens in a harmonious manner, the bankers can review the what is the collection that is there, what is the credit record, what is the turnover record, etc., or services record. So I think that is very important from the long-term perspective. So that is what, and maybe some rationalization of rates also.
Rationalization of rates. Thank you for these 5 wish lists that you shared with us. I'll go to Rakesh Nangia, Non-Executive Chairman, Nangia Anderson, for his suggestions.
A few short things which can make this much more robust actually. One is a dispute resolution. If you see the whole process that, especially when India, where substantial foreign investment comes for the businesses, we look forward for more certainty in resolution of the dispute. We look for faster resolution of the dispute. If the GST has been one tax, one nation, one tax, one market, but you still see in every state you have to go for the local dispute is concerned. Every state has an appellate body to be done. You'll find in a one businessman working in 5, 7, 10 states. There could be a possibility the dispute or the resolution in every state may be different. There may be a possibility the appellate body may decide differently than what the decision would have taken in other place. So this does not classically make you a case of one tax, basically. Second important part is this. I wonder basically, one example, there was a process to have a centralized national appellate tribunal. That would have been one tribunal for the whole of the country. That has not yet come. I really request the government to look into this, how fast it can come and give you much more stability and certainty to the businesses there. One interesting thing which is about the compensation sector, I need to tell you, Tarun, I don't know why we call it a sin tax. They pay the high additional taxes. They pay 2 to 50% of additional taxes. And there's the big taxes. Car buying is not anymore sin. I'm just trying to, on a lighter side, it should not be called a sin tax. I think government should look into they've extended by 4 more years. And there's a mix it something 40+% taxes. It becomes very, very steep with that. Important part from business point of view, criminalization provisions. There are 20 provisions in GST which can take a criminal action against you, basically. So what I'm not trying to say, if you do wrong, you have to face the consequence. If you evade it blatantly, you need to be prosecuted. But this becomes a very serious deterrent. It has to be used very sparingly. It has to be used very, very in an indiscriminate manner, rather than as a rule of the law and as a deterrent of fear is concerned. Another important part of practical business side, inverted duty structure services are not yet, you're getting an inverted duty refunds. You're not getting it done. Supreme Court has reviewed this position and they've asked the GST Council to look into this thing. The inverted duty structure, the service must play an important role. We must start look into that, give certainty to the business, how we can get the refund back. Finally, GST is not complete till we do not have petroleum products in it. It is not complete till you have taxes on immovable property, electricity duties. I think all should be subsumed. Now, 5 years has made the system much more robust. I think a roadmap by the government, clarity by the government will make it much, much more beautiful. Last, I would just add, government has started giving a certificate of appreciation. If you're compliant, a lot of SSEs have got that. I want to tell that. It's a beautiful way. You can print it, put it in your office. If it is there, government should make a one-step move. If you have got this certificate, you will not be subject to audit for next 3 years' time. This will give a more confidence. And it will be a very positive welcome step if the government looks into this, provided you have a 10% growth of revenue, something like that. This is one of the few suggestions I thought.
And thank you for that suggestion also of audit exemption. I'll go across to Advocate Gagan Kumar for his recommendations on making the GST even better.
Thanks, Tarun. So the starting point, as Mr. Nangia touched upon, The first and foremost is setting up of appellate tribunal. It's been long overdue now, because for every small thing, we have to rush to the High Court and unnecessarily increase the burden. What could be easily resolved by the tribunals, we have to go to the High Court. The second is bringing consistency in the advance ruling given by various state authorities. So invariably, we have noticed that at times on a particular issue, two state governments, the AR authorities, take a different view. Thirdly, the issue which is often come to bother the business community is the movement of goods. At times, goods are impounded on road, and it takes a lot of hurdle and effort actually to get those goods released. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is there are a couple of provisions under the GST law which give very expensive power to the GST officers, which are sort of asking general inquiries. So I raised this issue at the time of amendment also when this was moved, particularly section 151, which empowers GST officer to ask any information for the purpose of statistics. Now this is, to my mind, is prone to misuse, because you can ask any information under the sun. Like, I will not mention the cases which I am handling, but some of the points which are there are completely not relevant to GST as such, and they question the business model per se. Another aspect which we are coming across is that at times books of accounts are demanded for a particular state. Now I understand that these are administered at state level, but today in the age of ERP, where everything is computerized and centralized, it becomes quite challenging to cull out the accounting data for a particular specific state. And not to mention the allocation of input credit, which formula is there. So to reconcile everything for a state is a Herculean task. So in that sense, it becomes an artificial barrier to the entry of business, because the compliance cost goes high. Two more issues. The issue of transitional credit, that remains still need to be completely taken care of, though it's been 5 years, but issues relating to education cess or even VAT credit, that needs to be taken care of. And as Mr. Nangia also pointed out, at times the issue has come of high-handedness by the GST officers, particularly in case of search and seizure. I understand that now the directives have been issued, but on ground they need to be applied. There has been recent observation by the Supreme Court on the status of GST Council. So I think that need to be looked at, and a finality should be given on there as well. And lastly, that there should not be any arrest unless they're in an adjudication. So at the initial level, there should not be any arrest. So those decriminalization, to certain extent, we've done it in Companies Act.
Yes.
It's there in the Income Tax Act. So why not GST as well?
That's a good point. I think in the next show, we can take up criminal provisions in GST. We can do a series on that, because many businessmen are being asked to pay huge sums of money, and there is a threat of imminent arrest, but no notice is issued. Without issuing a notice, money is demanded. But that is for another show and another day. One last comment from Mr. Gopal Agarwal, very quickly before we end the show.
I think the GST is stabilized, and there are challenges like setting up the tribunal and decriminalization. These are the issues which are definitely bring more transparency, and government is moving on to those status. But ultimately, this, as has been said by Mr. Nangia Rakeshji, that cooperative, it's a very good example of cooperative federalism. And we think that it will improve. All these issues are in the knowledge of the government, and we are tackling it. Input tax credit, one point I would just like to mention is about the fake. Government has apprehension about large number of fake invoices. And what I have heard in my discussion is that government think about 26 or 25% of invoices are fake invoices. So cleaning of the system is also required, and we expect that in this process, unless this fake invoice issues and e-way bills, etc., are removed from the whole system, it's a counterproductive about this harassment issues, and they have to be balanced with this. So if the business communities also come forward and streamline this whole issue and help the government, ultimately, once this is streamlined, so automatically government can focus on reduction in the harassment issues and decriminalizing of the
that's
process.
A good point. That's a very good point Mr. Gopal Agarwal brought up. Of course, there is an apprehension about fake invoices with relation to input credit. We'll take that up along with criminal credentials of GST in the next show. But I would like to thank Mr. Gopal Agarwal, S. Ravi from Ravi Rajan and Company, Rakesh Nangia from Nangia Anderson, and Advocate Gagan Kumar for making time and joining us on this really important issue and sharing the suggestions from what you experienced. Looking forward to your participation in the next series also on the criminal provisions of GST. Thank you so very much for joining in. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Namaskar.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.